Hey, welcome back to Inside Oakland County. I'm John Scott, and I'd like to welcome Laurie Van Pelt, the Director of Management and Budget for the county. You know, I've been a county commissioner for 12 years, and every July the county executive and his staff present the budget to the county commissioners. But you know, actually this process starts long before July. Laurie, tell us about that. How does it start, and when do you really get working on what we're going to see in July?
Well, we actually work on the budget all year round,
Right.
but what you see is the official recommended budget from the county executive in July. So that's the official kickoff for the budget hearing process. But in reality, we're constantly looking at the budget. We have a 3-year rolling line item budget with a 5-year fiscal forecast. And so we're always fine-tuning that budget, and which is why we're working on it all year. And as you know, about every 2 weeks, maybe twice a month, we bring recommendations to the commissioners to amend that budget so that it's constantly updated and fresh.
Right, but the process itself, you'll start, because I know you have to get the departments in. How does that work?
So in February, it really kicks off when we provide the commissioners with a revenue estimate for the next 3 years. And then we go to the departments and we tell them about any constraints that we might have with the budget in terms of if they need to make cuts, if we're maybe recommending some general salary increases, and we give them the big picture. And then we ask them to prepare their budget requests and submit them to the county executive. And then from that point on, I would say about April is when we start receiving their requests. We review those requests, we vet them, we do our analysis, and then we prepare the recommendation to the commissioners, which is presented to you by July 1st.
Right, I remember several years ago when we were going into the downturn, and you would talk to the various departments and give them some bad news. And
exactly. At that time, actually, and we were planning ahead. So it's interesting. I'm quite proud of that period, actually, because Oakland County, between the period of 2007 and 2012, in that 5-year period, we had a decline in assessed property values of 34% in total during that 5-year period. That's the most that any county experienced. And our taxable value, which our revenues from the taxes, went down by 24%. So we had some tough decisions to make. And our approach at that time was to provide each elected official with a budget task and say, this is your portion based on your proportion of the budget for what we're asking you to cut so that we can stay balanced over the long term. And every elected official, every single one of them cooperated and came up with their own budget cuts and gave those to the county executive. So there was no infighting at that time. Right. And actually during that period, because we did plan ahead and we took cuts earlier rather than later, we actually ended up improving our balance sheet during that time period.
Right, and that was the one thing that we at Oakland County did that I think a lot of the locals wish they had done way back when and listened to us. And there were some other issues, though, things that changed going all the way back further when the Brooks came in with the budget and how we balanced it with the changes. You might want to talk a little bit about the different personnel changes and the programs that we had.
A lot of those changes were focused on trying to contain fringe benefit costs. One of the things that Oakland County did a long time ago is we started pre-funding our retiree health care. And that actually started back in 1987.
Right.
And so we had been setting funding aside, and we actually received an actuarial study every year since then that told us what our long-term liabilities are. Some governments have just started doing that, but we started that in 1987. So we knew what the longer-term invoices were going to look like coming down the road. So we started making changes when Brooks came on board. We changed the vesting schedule several times for retiree health care. We changed the retirement pension plan. We closed our defined benefit plan, right, which is a fixed amount, guaranteed fixed amount, and we did a defined contribution plan, which provided each employee at that time with an amount per pay period that they could invest in the way they saw fit. So rather than the county managing the investments, the employees manage their investments. Those are a couple examples. We We bid out our health care plan, and so we offer more for our active employees, more than just the traditional Blue Cross plan that we had a long time ago. So
Right.
there are different options, and altogether it has saved us large amounts of money. The end result is our pension system is fully funded and our retiree health care benefits are fully funded.
Right, I remember that when the actuarials came in and showed us the escalating up and up and up on the
Oh, yeah.
on the actuarials for the retiree health care. And of course, you guys and the executives department, you did something rather unique. You want to go talk a little bit about that? Because I
Yes.
thought that was cool.
So back in 2007, you're talking about the
6 and
bonding,
7,
right?
yes.
Yeah, in 2007, we issued debt to fully fund the remainder of our retiree health care plan. But first, before we did that, we closed off the retiree health care
Right.
benefit, and we did something similar where we replaced it for newly hired employees with a set amount of money, a retirement health savings account, similar to a defined contribution plan.
Right.
So after we closed that off, we issued debt, and at that time, our plan was only 36% funded, even though we
Right.
had been setting aside funding since 1987. At that point in time, we saved about $100 million just from issuing debt that we could then invest in long-term assets, and the result of the long-term investments was greater than the interest expense that we're paying on the debt. And so that's where we got the improvement. Then we just recently refinanced the debt in 2013. After 7 years, we could call the old debt because interest rates came down significantly. That saved us another $171 million over the remaining 13-year period of the debt, outstanding debt. So back when we issued the debt in 2007, our annual required contribution as determined by the actuary at that time went as high as $62 million
Right.
a year for retiree health care. Now, our annual debt service payments is about $38.5 million a year, and that will be fully paid off in 2027.
2027, that's when we finally, our legacy costs are gone as far as the
Exactly,
county's
then
going.
we will have
Right.
zero
Which is
debt
a-
other than those retiree health savings contributions that are now $75 every
Right.
2 weeks.
And you mentioned the 3-year rolling budget and looking out 5 years. I know we've been doing this for, well, it started at 2, then got aggressive and went to
Yes.
3, and then the 5-year projection.
Yes. So, yes, you're right. We had a biennial budget, and then in 2009, we expanded that to a triennial budget because of the downturn in the economy and the falling property values. So that triennial budget we do every year. It's a 3-year line item budget, and we call it a rolling budget because we don't just adopt a budget for 3 years,
No.
put it on the shelf, and then look at it again in 3 years.
No.
We update that, as I said, every 2 weeks, and what we do is each year, the old year falls off, a new year comes back on. So most recently, you approved the 3-year budget. We've already started the process now where we're going to look at the next 5-year forecast, and we'll be looking at that 5-year trend, and we're already starting the plan to for what we expect we need to do in the next 3 years.
Right. It was, for me, it was a learning experience when we first come on board. I knew nothing about any of this. And then sitting on finance, and we see the adjustments come in. Well, we're going to have to change this, we're going to do this. This happened, that happened. It's really a neat process.
It's a well-recognized model. We were quite unique, I would say, when we went to the triennial budget in 2009. Since that time, it's gotten a lot of attention, not just locally but nationally. But locally, there's been many local governments that have met with us, have asked us how we do this, and they have followed suit. So many local governments in Oakland County do adopt now either a 2-year budget or a 3-year budget. It has helped them plan significantly. And we even give presentations at the Government Finance Officers Association multiple times to talk to them about our budget process and about, you know, how we funded our healthcare obligations longer term. And we get all 3 awards from the Government Finance Officers Association because of our best practices. So we get the award for comprehensive annual financial report, our popular annual financial report, and our triennial budget.
Right, and it's so unique because what does that give us in the end? A AAA bond rating.
Exactly.
And you know, everybody touts the AAA bond rating, but what does it mean to the county, number one, and I think it also translates to our local cities, villages, and townships. How does that
It does.
work?
The AAA bond rating gave us a great rate when we issued the retiree health care
Right.
debt. So that was the primary benefit to the county, because the county really, other than that debt, has very low debt for its own use as a county government. Primarily, it really benefits on an ongoing basis the local communities, as you mentioned. So when a local community like West Bloomfield Township does a water and sewer project, they are able to take advantage of our AAA bond rating, where we become an obligor along with the township. And so the township gets the advantage of the highest bond rating, which is the AAA, because of that. And we also have a AAA bond rating program where some communities have financed their city halls. We helped Kego Harbor out
yes.
with a refinancing, and that saves them significant dollars in their interest costs.
Yeah, I was involved with that
Yes.
and the county did a great job getting them out of a very bad program and into the new program where they saved a lot of money, and it's helped them keep their budget going, and they've bought in at that community into everything that Bob Dadow says. It's your boss, and they do a great job.
Yeah.
Okay, so now one of the things we're moving along, we've survived '09. We had to do some bad things back then. Well, not bad, but it was, the
Tough
employees were very
decisions.
tough decisions. I know there were some wage cuts.
There were. We had two salary reductions 2 years in a row. I believe that was in fiscal year 10 and fiscal year 11. So the first year that we did a salary reduction, it was 2.5%. And then the second year in a row, we did a 1.5% reduction. So employees took an actual 4% salary reduction at that time. And then we had to, take away some other benefits also. And the employees, they didn't really complain about it.
No.
They understood. I think they appreciated, first of all, because we didn't do it and say, this is going to happen in 2 weeks. Because of our forward planning, we said this is going to happen with the next year's budget and the year after that, so they could plan ahead and adjust their own, household budgets. And I think they appreciated the fact that we didn't do some of the things that some other communities had to do, like take away the retiree health care benefits. The important thing was we kept our promises to the existing employees. If they were hired in with a certain level of a benefit package, we pretty much, for the most part, maintained that.
We did, yes. They're frozen in where they were, and the defined benefit or defined contribution program, I should say, that's what, when I'm not a county commissioner, I do work in the private sector, and that's the only thing I've ever grown up with was the 401ks and the profit sharing plans and stuff like that, which allows the employer to budget out because they know their fixed cost.
Yeah, and one of the ways that we managed that, because that would have been a difficult decision had we not done a really concerted effort at communicating with the employees. So we held multiple employee meetings. We held them on different shifts to accommodate those employees that might work in afternoon or evening shift. We allowed them an opportunity to ask their questions. We presented to them so that they could see the long-term financial forecast that we were seeing. So we didn't keep all this information secret to ourselves or just have a dialogue with just the commissioners. We tried to communicate with all the employees down to, and we have, with including the part-time, probably about 4,500 employees.
We do, yes.
Yeah, and so we did that. We also provided an opportunity for employees to provide ideas on ways to reduce the budget, because they have a lot of good ideas. They see their own area on a day-to-day basis, so we had blogs provided on our intranet, and employees were encouraged to submit their ideas, to ask questions if they were too shy, to ask them in a bigger meeting. And so we really tried to do the best job that we could to keep the employees informed. And then obviously, once things improved, one of the first things that we did before we, reinvested in our capital improvement plan for buildings. One of the first things that we did with the commissioner's support was reinvest in the employees by restoring some of those salary cuts that they took.
And it's been good. They've come up. And
slowly. But
it is slow. It's not an easy thing because one of the things happens with this way your taxes are done. You got your your state equalized SEV,
Yeah.
and that's what you pay taxes on.
Yeah.
And if you've been in the house a long time, you only rose that inflation rate, but your next door neighbor could have purchased a house, and he paid at the higher rate.
Yeah.
But when we went down, we all went down together. The first
Yeah.
group, my taxes were still going up, while others were starting to come down because they were higher. And when we all met, it brought it down.
And that is one of the things that I think Brooks and the commissioners always keeps in mind. They don't look at the compensation package for employees in a vacuum.
No.
They look to see what is going on with the taxpayers who ultimately are paying for those salaries and benefits.
Right.
And during the the Great Recession, there were many of our taxpayers, they were losing their jobs, losing their benefits, having to move out of the state, maybe, losing their home. It was a tough situation. So we had to balance and say, our employees need to sacrifice as well as our taxpayers, and they did so willingly.
Right, and of course now the somewhat turned around, property values are going up, but the taxes can only rise.
That's right.
The rate of inflation are 5%. So your value of your house might have went from $200,000 to $300,000, but you're not going to pay taxes on that full value anymore.
When Proposal A was passed, I believe that was in 1992. So
Yeah,
Proposal
2 or 4.
A, and then the Headley Constitutional Amendment, those two pieces of state law combined is what creates the phenomenon that you're talking about. So when property values were going down, the tax values were going down, but now that things are going better because of these tax limitation laws, it can only increase by the rate of inflation or 5%, whichever is less.
Right.
The only properties that can increase greater than that is when a house might sell to a new owner, and then the property value can be reset upon a transfer of ownership, or with new buildings. So if someone adds an addition to their house, then that addition gets taxed at the market value, but not the rest of the home.
Just the additional part, yeah. So, and it's what we call the pop-ups when they sell those houses. But even then, it's not recovering. I mean, you can't recover back what you lost. You could lose quick.
Right.
But to get back up there, what are we talking? We had a year, I think, I heard.
Yeah, it gets, so what you're talking about is the millage rollback. And so when the economy rebounds and you have a lot of pop-ups, houses are selling, that's when the Headley Constitutional Amendment kicks in. So let's say I've lived in my house since 1992.
Okay.
And so if we get a lot of pop-ups, actually my tax bill will increase less than the rate of inflation because it forces a rollback in the maximum authorized millage rate. And so one of the things that we do in Oakland County, rather than be unprepared and have a forced rollback, which might create a revenue situation for us, we always project ahead. We look at what the inflation rate is going to be. And the commissioners and Brooks has always been very good about levying a millage rate well below the maximum auzed value.
Right.
And so we have some room there. We're not caught by surprise. And so we have levied something much less than the maximum authorized rate. And actually, most recently, the commissioners approved over a 2-year period a 0.15 mils reduction, which will save the county taxpayers approximately $75 million over a 10-year period.
Okay, $75 million savings over a 10-year period. Now, is there a projection or a prediction when the property values will be back up to where they were like in '09? I've heard numbers out in the 2020.
Yes, we're still not. We predicted that it could take 25 years from the bottom of the values during the Great Recession before we could restore back where the property values might be. And that's on existing property. Obviously, it depends on economic development. As construction takes place, we might get there faster, but I would say it will probably take at least 20 to 25 years before we recover the full value because of those tax limitation laws.
And of course, we're talking about a county that's 910 square miles, so we do have green space left that has development going on, but then there's those of us down here in the West Bloomfields, the Waterfords, Kegos, there's no more room. You don't have the new construction going in, so you're not getting the
Yeah.
benefit, say, that those other
It
smaller.
depends on density, as you're saying. The older, more built-out communities, because they don't have the green space, unless they have a tear down of existing property
Right.
and then a rebuilding, yes, it's very hard to grow their way back to the levels where they were at before.
Good. Okay, then I'm going to ask you, now here's the tough question, because we got the budget, we're all there. What are we valued at? And we got the annual budget's 800 and some odd. We don't need
$800 million is our total budget.
Right.
About half of that budget is the general fund. And I would say the property tax revenues generate, I'm going to say about $230 million of that $400 million.
Okay, so everything else is other forms of revenue and
Charges for services, contracts with local communities. So for example, the sheriff provides a lot of road patrol services for some communities. Equalization provides some assessing services for some of the communities. I think in the area for the viewing audience, most of those services are provided by their own local governments.
Right, yeah.
But for some of the communities, like in the northern or some
the Rochester Hills and I know
Independence
Brandon's
Township.
we do a lot of that through the contract with the sheriff's
Correct,
department. It's a
yeah.
good time. So we're good. We're balanced. We're looking out. Gosh, this is 20.
We are balanced beyond 2020.
So that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're both retired by then. I will, but you won't be.
Well, maybe. I've been with the county for 37 years now, and
Right.
I've been eligible to retire for a couple of years, but I really enjoy my job. We have a great team at Oakland County, so I enjoy what I'm doing, and Brooks Patterson is a wonderful county executive and a wonderful boss. So I'm actually the first female director of management and budget. He appointed me back in 2002. He's a great person to work for.
Right.
Your
entire staff is just mind-boggling of the guys and the gals that we have up there doing what they do to provide the services for the taxpayers in Oakland County. So it's been a good run. I mean, we're doing good. We're very fortunate to have a county executive and a team that he put together that does a great job for us.
Yeah, and we have a great team of leaders, but we, as you mentioned, we have great employees. My department in particular, I get to sit here and take credit for the good job my department does, but we have wonderful managers and wonderful technical staff, and I would encourage the viewers to look at our county website. At the bottom of our homepage, there's a link that's called Investor Relations, and if they click on that link, there's a wealth of financial information that our staff makes available to the citizens and people who buy our bonds, and so I would encourage people to look at that if they want to learn more about Oakland County's finances.
I have seen in my time, transparency is the key, and that's what we do.
Absolutely.
Nothing's done behind closed doors. It's pretty transparent. It's been a great time.
Yes, it has been, yeah.
So Laurie, thank you so much for joining us today. And if you have any questions about anything you've seen or heard on today's show, please feel free to contact me at my email, scottj@oakgov.com. Thanks for watching us, and we'll see you next time on Inside Oakland County.